What is up, guys? Joey from HPTCG here. Gonna be bringing you guys a detailed breakdown analysis video on how to win in an open game state against Bonney as an Enel player. Now, a lot of people think that Bonney is heavily favored. I think it's actually the exact opposite. I think Enel is heavily favored into Bonney, and I'm gonna show you a few reasons why that is. And this video was sent to me by someone that I was coaching, I think it was actually yesterday, and I was like, this would be a perfect video for YouTube. By the way, if you guys want some coaching, feel free to check out moonlighttcg.com. I am accepting new people. And one more thing, guys. I want to have this as a daily reminder for you to go to the gym and work out. Your health is really important, and I think that if you are watching this and are on the... if you're just not motivated, I'm hoping that this will give you the motivation you need to just get into the gym. Even if you don't have a gym membership or anywhere, a gym near you, just go for a walk, go for a run, something to get the body moving. And yeah, let's get to this game. Alright guys, so as always, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of going into the exact moments of time where you mess up in a game, and we're going to show you exactly how you messed up, why that is so important, and then what you could have done differently. So that way we don't have to watch the whole game, and we can just spend more time kind of analyzing what we're doing in a more efficient way. So right here, he plays the Onami, puts the banish on the Yamato, attacks into his life, and then what happens is he blocks the Bartolomeo, which is probably smart, because you want that life as a resource, and Bartolomeo isn't really going to do a whole lot. Then obviously he's going to attack into the Bonney with the Enel, which is going to go down. So then he has these options right here. If you look at his hand, he has 2 Katakuris and a Raigo, and then 2 aces. Now personally, what I would have done is I probably wouldn't have even played the Onami, if we're being honest. I probably would have kept the Onami in hand, but I definitely would have played the Katakuri and put the Cavendish at the bottom of his life, because the Cavendish can just attack into a rested character. For example, even if the character is way bigger, like this Compote or Yamato or a Rush Ace for that example. So if you use the Katakuri to put the Onami back into your life, of course it's going to kill the Cavendish, but it might kill it a little bit too late. Also, because you're preparing just in case for a 9-cost Zoro, it's best to stay at 2 life. That way, you're not trashing too many things. So, for example, if you put the Katakuri, you play the Katakuri, put the Onami back into your life, what happens is if he plays Zoro, now the Cavendish is still alive, and then also you have to trash both the Onami and this card right here to Raigo the Zoro, which is a huge problem. So yeah, definitely what I would have done is kept the Onami in hand as a 1k counter, because they have no way of getting rid of your hand size, and then play the Katakuri to put the Cavendish at the bottom of his life. That way he's not getting free value every single time he plays any characters, because he's not playing with 12 Dawn per turn anymore, and you're also playing with a bunch of big bodies. Also, against Bonney, the best thing you can do is starve them out, and then you put them on like a 1 or 2 turn clock. Usually it's about a 2 turn clock, at most 3 turn clock. So what that means is you want to build a very big board with like a Compote, Yamato, Katakuri, Ace, and then in 1 turn do like 3 or 4 damage to them, right? Because these attacks are so big, they don't want to counter out, especially when they're starting to really hurt for resources. So on a turn where you have like 4 characters or 5 characters that are like really big that can attack, you attack like 9k with your leader, 9k with Yamato, 11k with Ace, 11k with Katakuri, things like that. And they're going to go from 5 life, maybe even at 6 life, depending on how many Katakuris you do, all the way down to like 2 or 3. And then the next turn, you're like, okay, what are you going to do now? Like, are you going to play Doflamingo? Because you better play 3 Doflamingos in a row. That's the only way you even have a chance to come back into this game. Because if they play a Zoro and then you Raigo it, they just wasted their entire turn, and you're going to just crack them into life. Then if they play a Captain Kid and try to hide behind the wall, you play a Katakuri, and then you just crack their life again, right? So that's kind of the goal with Bonney right there. So the next the next thing that I noticed was 5 minutes and 6 seconds. So right here, what happens is he plays Gadatsu instead of Ace and just attacks into the Cavendish. So you remember how I just said earlier, and this is the board state, by the way. So do you remember how I just said earlier how it's better to develop a really big and wide board against Bonney to put them on a clock? Well, with Cavendish, with Gadatsu, you're not Gadatsu's not a body that's really threatening in this situation right here. So it's better to play the Ace and not heal and then attack into the Cavendish, because best case scenario, Bonney uses pretty much all of their Dawn to play 1 big character per turn. They're very similar to Enel in that regard. So anywhere from like 6 to 10 Dawn is going to be used to play the a big character. All right, so I want to show you guys this real quick too, because this is really important. The reason that we would go ace here, all right, and I'm gonna have like I'm gonna edit this into the video so we can do like a highlight reel from like Sports Center. But the reason that we play the ace here is because, one, the Cavendish is going to die more than likely, right? So if he saves the Cavendish, because the Cavendish was rested right here, so if he saves the Cavendish with this ace, he only has one card in hand at that point, because he has to give him two 2Ks and a 1K, so he's going to one card in hand. Best case scenario, what happens is, Cavendish is pretty much automatically going to die. Any good player is going to just let the Cavendish die. But what happens is, from this position right here, you want to look at a couple things, all right? You always, every time you want to analyze a situation and what you're supposed to do in a certain situation, you have to figure out what your opponent is capable of at best, right? So at best, right now he already has the Doflamingo stunning these two characters in the leader right here. If you play the ace, you kill the Cavendish right out of the bat, right? The best thing that the Bonney player can do is drop another Doflamingo, all right? And then freezing, this guy, and then the ace that is now rested because you attacked into the Cavendish. Still, at that point in time right there, he has no opportunity to go for lethal, all right? So think of it like this. If he plays the Doflamingo, he has no Dawn at all to attack into your characters. So at best, he's attacking 10k into a 9k character right here. If he plays a Zoro, you already have the Raigo for it. If he plays anything less than Zoro, an 8 cost or less, you have 2 Katakuris for it. So there's plenty of things that you can do to retaliate based on what they do. But at best, like I said, they can play a Doflamingo and freeze your board. And then if they attack at all with this Doflamingo right here, then you can load up all 10 Dawn and put it on your leader that they don't lock, because they're obviously going to lock the 3 biggest characters on the field with the Doflamingo. Then you put all 10 Dawn on your leader and attack into the Doflamingo that's rested if he attacks into these guys for 10k. And now at that point of the board, you have a Capote, a Yamato, and then an ace. All right, and all they have is an active Doflamingo, because you're going to kill this Doflamingo, you already killed this Cavendish right here, and that's it, right? So the thing is, guys, when you're playing Enel, especially a deck like Enel, you have to realize that you have all the time in the world to do whatever you need to do, especially when they're dwindling in cards, right? And the last thing you want to do is give them resources, especially when you're ahead of them. Look how far, like the Enel player is so far ahead of the Bonney player, so far ahead of the Bonney player. So what you want to do is make it so you stay, like, you drag the game out for as long as possible, because the longer the game goes on, the more and more ahead you'll be, right? Because if you have 10 cards in your hand, which he does right here, and the other player only has 4 cards in hand, you have way more options and way more plays than this guy, right? You can counter more, you can protect your life more than this guy right here. So the goal is to take control of the board while he has very little cards, and then slowly kind of suffocate him from this game state right here. And let me show you exactly what to look for real quick, right? Because we talked about this in the coaching session. So the first thing you want to check for is the board, all right? Once you have the board analyzed, you can see how much pressure you're under, all right? So in this example right here, there is not any combination of cards in the Bonney player's hand or on the field to get lethal on the Enel player. Because best case scenario, so right here with these 3 characters, there's no possible way he can get lethal. The only way he can possibly get lethal is if he has, if this board were to stay the exact same would be Hody Jones, and then also, Cavendish, and then you'd have to have no counter. But with the amount of counter you have, it's impossible for him to get lethal. So with that being said, if it's impossible for him to get lethal, then you're not under any pressure at all. All right, so you can take the game very slowly, and you can take it at your pace, because you're not worried about dying anytime soon. All right, the next thing you look for is their hand, right? Both of you, like both your hand size. You look at your hand size, you look at his hand size, and you're like, okay, his hand size is way lower than mine. All right, if his hand size is way lower than mine, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this game drag on for a long time, because anytime he turns his character sideways, then he's just going to just lose all of his characters. And if he doesn't turn his characters sideways, that's fine, because your deck wins the late game anyway, right? So like I said, if he doesn't turn any of his characters sideways, you put him on a 2-turn clock. You know, wait till you have like 4 or 5 characters on the board, big attacks, and you do, you know, 3 to 5 damage to him. And then you're like, okay, try to kill me, you know? And you can kill them way before they can kill you. Best case scenario is they hide behind the kid wall, you Katakuri it, and you just wipe their board. I mean, even if you play Katakuri, like, of course, you only have 2 Dawn left over, active Dawn, but you'll have at that point, you know, a 9k, a 9k, a 10k, a 10, you know, all these big characters. So, you know, they're just not going to have enough time to set up. They're really just not. And then anyway, the next thing you look for is life, right? Is once you see how much life both the players have, you figure out how much game there is left to play. All right, so let me break this down one more time. So you have the field. The field determines how much pressure you're in, right, or how much pressure you're under, and then based on what is on the field, and also based on what is in life, or how much life is left, you realize how much time is left in the game. So for example, there's plenty of time left in this game because 1, this Bonney has 5 life, so that's 5 cards to kind of put him back in the game, and then 2, you have 2 life left as an Enel player, but you have, you know, obviously triggers, your leader effect, this and that. Basically, you're at 3 life right there. So there's plenty of game left to play. And then you look at hand size and you go, okay, because he has too much life left, I know the game isn't going. I'm not going to be able to end the game pretty soon. So attacking into his life isn't really worth it. But if I attack into his characters and then force him to basically just have no resources, I can end the game really quickly by doing 3 or 4 damage, maybe even 5 hits in 1 turn, and then killing him on the very next turn, because he can't kill me. It's impossible based on the cards I have in my hand and my leader effect. All right, so I'm sorry, that was like a long explanation, but just wanted to explain that, because this is how you figure out how to win in these game states right here, is because you want to figure out, you know, this is an open sea, right? There's a lot of different things you can do, and the more cards that you give your opponent, the easier it is for them to come back into the game and beat you. Now, right here, he's going to make a huge mistake, and he's going to play Gadatsu. Gadatsu's going to kill the Cavendish, and then he's going to put 5 Dawn on his Onami, and he's going to attack into life. Now, what does that do? All right, so this is the problem, right? The Gadatsu not only is going to get rested by the what is it called? The leader effect, which is now just fodder for the Doflamingo, but 2, he's giving him an extra card from his life to his hand to be able for him to come back into the game, and that card could be another Doflamingo to kind of help lose out on some of the pressure that the Enel player has. So that's a big problem right there. So he takes the life and he's like, okay, now he's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in hand when he just had 4. So not great at all. So that was 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 6 seconds. Let's go to 6 minutes and 12 seconds, because that is a huge issue as well. And like I said, guys, the goal of this game, this game right here is to starve him out of resources, right? He has a rested Doflamingo, and he has a Doflamingo right here. What I would have done personally is I would have just gained a life, and then I would have just ended my turn. That's exactly what I would have done, because if I gain a life and end my turn, then of course he might kill the Yamato and the Compote if he just loads up the Dawn with these Doflamingos right here. But if he doesn't load up the Dawn, then I'm still at 3 life, so he obviously can't kill me. And then 2, what's going to happen is, even if he puts like 1 Dawn on each and then plays a Captain Kid, you can easily counter out of 1 or both of these with the cards you have in your hand. And then the next turn, you can just easily clap back at the Kid or clap back at the Dofis if he doesn't play the Kid. And I mean, because look, he doesn't have a whole lot of cards in hand. You can either kill the Dofis or completely drain his hand, or you can, you know, I don't even know what I was going to say there. Basically, what you do is with Doflamingo, with this turn right here, you just want to set up for future turns, because attacking into the Doflamingo isn't really going to do a whole lot. I'd much rather just get the heal than take a 1k out of his hand, and I definitely don't want to attack into his life, because then I'm going to give him a resource for him to come back into the game. So what he does right here is, and I'm sorry for the confusion, guys. I've been getting kind of fucking drunk like every night now that I live in Vegas. It's definitely not great. So he does exactly what you should not do, is he attacks 10 into life, and not only does he give him another target, or a good target for another Doflamingo if he has it, but he gives him another card too. So if we went back about a minute in time, we're at 6 minutes and 20 seconds right here. Let's go back to 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So he had 4 cards in hand and 5 life, and now it's 6 minutes and 20 seconds. He has, look how drastically the board state changes. He has 3 life and 7 cards in hand. That's a big problem. And then he's at 10 Don, right? 10 Don, active Don, 2 active Doflamingos, 7 cards in hand. Like, this is getting really bad for the Enel player, and yeah, this is definitely just not the position you want to put yourself in. Definitely not at all. So that is a huge problem. All right, so once you already make a mistake, that's fine. Let's figure out how to get out of the mistake. So there's no point, once you already make a mistake, there's no point of sulking about it. Just figure out how to get out of the mistake later on in the game if you can. So it's 7 minutes and 5 seconds is exactly what we could have done. So look at this right here. So he plays a Flampe instead of playing another ace and healing, or just attacking Bonney and putting him on a clock. So right here, what I would have done was he's going to play a Flampe, and then he's going to play a Katakuri to put... is it a Katakuri? I think... Let's see what he does here. I forget what he does. So he plays a Flampe, and then takes the top card of his life, and draws 2 1Ks. So he replaced a 2K with 2 1Ks. Not really exactly ideal. Then he makes a huge mistake here by playing Raigo, right? So Raigo's not only a problem, because if you drop Zoro, the game's not anywhere close to being over just yet, because he has 2 blockers on the field right here. He has 3 life, and you have no way of actually killing him in the next like 1 or 2 turns, especially, depending on what he does. So what happens is, if he drops a Zoro right here, you no longer have Raigo to be able to actually get rid of the Zoro, and that's a huge issue, right? So that could have just lost him the game right there. But what I would have done, we can back it up a little bit, is before that, is let's read this board state right here. He has technically 2 attacks, or I'm sorry, 3. He has 3 attacks with the big guys, the 1 attack with his leader, and then if he plays an ace, he could have another big attack, right? So here's what I would have done. And funny enough, it's very simple. I would have just played the ace, healed, and then ended my turn. So I know that sounds crazy, but the thing is, you're in a weird position where you're not really pressuring his life too much because of how many blockers he has. And right here, his board state is a lot more menacing than it was before. So like so pressuring his life would be a little bit rough, because what could happen is, if you attack 10, 9, and then 10 again, with the ace coming out, if you don't heal, then of course you have the ability to do 3 hits, but realistically, you're probably going to deal 1 hit. He's going to counter out of the other hit, and he's going to block the other hit. So realistically, you took 2 cards out of his hand, 3 cards out of his hand, 1 life and 1 blocker, which is like not the worst thing in the world. But if you just wait 1 more turn that you have ace, right? So you can go like, if you play ace heal, you'll be at 3 life. The very next turn you'll have a 9k, a 9k, a 10k, and then you have another ace in hand, so that's another 10k. So you have so many big attacks, and the second they turn these characters sideways, obviously you can crack into them and then like wipe them, because they only have 5 cards in hand, so it's really likely you're going to be able to kill them. Not just that, but also, if they don't turn these characters sideways, you have way more pressure to actually pierce into their life and put them on the clock. Whereas if you, like, with this board state right now, you're actually not putting them on a clock, and depending on what they have in their hand, you might actually die. Also, the reason the Raigo is a big mistake as well is because this Doflamingo is just going to take 1 hit anyway, and that 1 hit could be a trigger. Whereas this Raigo is basically trashing this card to kill this Doflamingo when, the Doflamingo is only worth 1 life anyway. So why waste a potential trigger, and hit from the Doflamingo to kill the Doflamingo, and then also not have answers for the most important card against, this deck, which is obviously the 9-cost Zoro. So just keep that in mind, all right? And then 726 right here is the next mistake right here. And sorry this video is a little bit long, guys, but I just wanted to kind of get my point across. But so right here, what he does is he attacks with the Compote, and then he attacks with the Enel for 8. So it's just a big miss sequence right there. So guys, there's a difference between a load-on commitment and a miss sequence. So a load-on commitment is when you have a bunch of different plays and you want to attack with as little Dawn as possible to be able to figure out what your opponent's going to do, right? Or what you're going to do based on what your opponent does. But when you have only one play, there is no load on commitment. It is just commitment. You know, it's just commitment. So with that being said, here's a bad miss sequence right here. So if you have an Enel, we'll back it up a little bit, right? So in this situation right here, if you attack 8K with the Enel into life, since he decided to be aggressive right here, if you attack 8K into life, what he can do is he can block with the Hawkins and give you a 2K, right? And then now that he blocked with the Hawkins, you can go 9 into the Hawkins, and he'd have to give you either another 2K and a 1K or block with the Arouge. Whereas if you attack 9 into life, he'll just take it, and then 8 into life, he just 2Ks out with the Hawkins because that's his last attack, right? So it's much better, obviously, to do your little guys first, especially since he has no leader effect anymore. And this was just a big miss sequence right here because you could have taken more cards out of his hand in that way right there. All right. We're not going to watch the end of the game right there because nothing else mattered. There's no other mistakes. He ended up winning this game because the other guy threw really hard. Funny enough. Yeah, the other guy threw pretty hard, but guys, I would say let me come back to this real quick. What's up? Yeah, so guys, what I would say right here is it's really important to know whenever you're in a game state where like things can go either way, right? There's a lot of life left, there's a lot of cards left. You have to figure out realistically what is the win condition. How do you win from this point on, right? And I was telling the guy that I was coaching, I was like, if I had an iris scanner, the reason I figured this out, kind of like what I look for even subconsciously, because sometimes I don't even remember that I'm thinking about it, right? But it's almost like it's automatic at this point because I've been doing it for so long. But if you have an iris scanner and you're looking at, you know, the best players ever play the game, right? Like the guy that won Worlds, Guang Rom, right? I'm sorry if I butchered it. He's going to look at a couple things. He's going to look at characters on the board. He's going to look at cards in hand. He's going to look at life, right? Once you look at those things, those give you pretty much the analysis you need for every single situation, right? And from the position you're in at that point, right? Anytime you're evaluating a game state, you look at those three things and be like, okay, this is how long the game can go on, right? These are the cards I need to look out for. This is, you know, these are the cards I have an answer for, right? Or this is the card that he doesn't have an answer for, so I should play it, right? You know, if he has very few cards in hand, I should attack into his characters and clear his board, and that way I can get control of the board. If he has a lot of cards in hand, not a lot of characters on the board, you attack into his life and get cards out of hand, right? You basically just look for like a chink in their armor, right? Or a kink in their armor, whatever it is. I think it's chink in the armor, and you look for that, and then you just try to exploit it. And that's all you do, right? And those are the things that you look for, and that is kind of evaluating the game right there. But let me know if this was helpful for you guys. I know it's kind of all over the place, but I think this was pretty helpful. I haven't really seen other videos talk about something like this, so hopefully you guys got some value out of it. And see ya.